Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the silence of the night surround you. Now, imagine a winter night so cold that the air itself seems to whisper secrets. The wind howls through the trees like a distant cry, and the darkness stretches endlessly, hiding things you can't see, but they can see you. These are real horror stories, stories that have haunted those who lived them. As you listen, remember one thing. Sometimes the scariest things happen when the world is at its quietest. It was the coldest night of the year, and the roads were buried under a thick layer of snow. I was driving home from a friend's house, taking the long, desolate highway that cut through the forest. The air was heavy, the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're being watched. The road stretched endlessly ahead, and my car's headlights barely cut through the fog that had settled over the trees. My heater was on full blast, but the cold still seeped into my bones. I remember checking my phone. No signal. Typical. Then I saw him. A man stood on the side of the road, just beyond the reach of my headlights. His clothes were tattered, his hair unkempt, and his skin pale, as if he had been out in the cold for too long. He wasn't waving or asking for help. He was just standing there, completely still, his face obscured by the shadows. A chill ran down my spine. Something about him felt wrong. I should have kept driving. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to just go. But against my better judgment, I slowed down. My car rolled forward until my headlights fully illuminated him. That's when I saw his face. His eyes were completely black. Not like normal eyes reflecting light. Pure black, empty, like voids. And then he smiled. I panicked. My foot slammed on the gas, and my tires screeched against the icy road. The car fishtailed, but I kept control, desperate to get away from him. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. But the nightmare didn't end there. A few minutes later, I glanced at my rearview mirror. He was sitting in my back seat. I swear to God he was inside my car, grinning at me with those black, soulless eyes. I lost control. My car skidded and spun, crashing into a snowbank. The impact dazed me, and for a moment, everything was quiet except for my ragged breathing. When I turned around, he was gone. I don't know how long I sat there, too afraid to move. Eventually I managed to call for help, and a tow truck arrived an hour later. The driver looked at me strangely when I asked if he had seen anyone on the road. "There's no one out here," he said. "Not in this weather." But I know what I saw. That night, I barely slept, and for weeks after, every time I drove alone at night, I kept checking my back seat, because deep down, I knew he wasn't done with me yet. There's a reason I never spend winter nights alone anymore. It happened 2 years ago, on a night colder than I had ever felt before. I was staying at my grandfather's old cabin deep in the woods. It was a small place, 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and large windows that overlooked the endless stretch of trees outside. My grandfather had warned me about the winter spirits, but I had laughed it off, thinking it was just an old man's way of scaring me. That night, I learned he wasn't joking. The snowstorm outside was relentless, howling against the windows like a beast trying to get in. The power had gone out an hour earlier, leaving me with nothing but the dim glow of my flashlight and the crackling of the fireplace. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., I heard knocking. Not on the door, on the window. It was slow, deliberate, 3 sharp knocks against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. My blood ran cold. I was in the middle of the woods. No neighbors. No roads leading here. No one should be outside. I grabbed my flashlight and hesitated before turning towards the window. My heart pounded as I forced myself to look. And then I saw it. A handprint. A perfect, frozen handprint on the outside of the glass. The shape was unmistakable. Long fingers stretched wide as if someone had pressed their palm firmly against the freezing surface. The strangest part? It wasn't melting. I bolted for the door, locking it, pushing a chair against it, anything to keep whatever was out there from coming inside. My breath was shallow, my body shaking, not just from the cold, but from sheer terror. Then, my phone buzzed. I grabbed it, hoping for a message or call from someone. Anyone. But when I looked at the screen, my stomach dropped. It was a picture. A photo of me. Not from earlier that day, not from last week. A photo of me, right then and there, standing by the window, staring at my phone. The realization hit me like ice water. Someone, or something, was watching me, right at that moment. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the fireplace, clutching a knife, waiting for morning. When the first light of dawn broke, I gathered my things and ran. I didn't look back. When I told my grandfather, he went pale. He only said one thing before refusing to speak about it again. If you hear knocking in the snow, never look outside. I never used to believe in ghosts. That changed one winter night when I nearly froze to death, and something tried to take me with it. It was supposed to be a simple road trip. I was driving through the mountains, heading back home after visiting my cousin. Snow had started falling lightly in the afternoon, but by the time night came, it had turned into a full-blown blizzard. Visibility was terrible, and the road signs were covered in ice. My car struggled against the thickening snow, and soon my worst fear came true. I got stuck. I tried everything. Pressing the gas, reversing, even digging around the tires with my hands. Nothing worked. My car was dead in the middle of a road that nobody else would be stupid enough to take in this weather. Then, the whispering started. At first I thought it was the wind. A soft, distant sound carried through the storm. But as I listened, my skin prickled. It wasn't the wind. It was voices. Many voices. I turned off my engine to hear better. The whispering grew louder. "Help us. Please." So cold. So cold. The voices were all around me, as if dozens of people were standing just beyond the snow. But I couldn't see a damn thing. My headlights barely reached past the front of my car. Then, I saw movement. Dark shapes shifting just beyond my vision, flickering between the swirling snowflakes. My breath fogged up the windshield as I stared, frozen in place. The whispers turned desperate. "Come outside. You have to help us. It hurts. It's so cold. Please." I swallowed hard. Every survival instinct in my body screamed, "Don't get out of the car." But then, I heard something that made my blood turn to ice. "Please. My name. Help us." They knew my name. My heart nearly stopped. I hadn't told anyone I was driving through these mountains. Nobody knew I was here. Nobody alive. And yet, these voices in the storm knew my name. The dark shapes outside pressed closer, circling my car. The frost on my windows thickened, as if the cold itself was trying to force its way in. That's when I saw the handprints. Hundreds of them, covering my car. Faint, frozen imprints appearing one by one on the windows, the windshield, even the roof. They weren't melting. They weren't fading. They were holding on. I don't remember screaming, but I must have. My hands shook as I turned the key, praying my car would start. The engine groaned, hesitated, then roared to life. I slammed the gas. For a terrifying moment, my tires spun uselessly against the ice. And then, finally, I lurched forward. The voices screamed. The whispering turned into a wailing howl echoing through the blizzard. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I drove blindly, my hands numb against the wheel. I didn't stop, not until I reached a gas station miles away, where I collapsed against the steering wheel, shaking. When I stepped out, my car was clean. No handprints, no frost, no sign of what had just happened. But I knew what I had heard, what I had seen. And now, every winter, when the first snow falls, I swear I can still hear it, the whispering in the wind,